3 bone-chilling air hostess horror stories that will haunt your flights forever. One night, under the glaring fluorescence of a near-empty airport terminal, 3 unsuspecting travelers took their seats on Flight 394, oblivious to the dark shadows that loomed over them. As the plane ascended into the night sky, an icy shiver snaked through the cabin. This wasn't just any flight, something sinister was brewing. With every bump of turbulence, the air hostess, a slender woman with hauntingly pale skin and eyes that glimmered like 2 shards of ice, flitted down the aisle. There was something odd about her smile, it didn't reach her eyes. Instead, her expression seemed to embrace the shadows, as if they whispered secrets only she could hear. When she offered a drink, her voice was barely more than a ghostly whisper, sending jitters straight down the spine of the man in 23B, who gulped his soda nervously, feeling its carbonation burn like fear in his throat. Then came the first strange occurrence. A woman fell unconscious in the back, but when the hostess checked on her, the cold laughter that echoed from her lips sent chills through the other passengers. Just moments later, the lights flickered ominously, as the plane dipped and swayed through the clouds, leaving the weary travelers wondering if they'd entered a realm where the mundane became twisted. People exchanged glances of shock, and a young boy's whimper echoed through the cabin like a distant thunderclap. Mechanical sounds suddenly stopped, plunging the plane into an eerie silence. It felt heavy, suffocating. Eyes darted towards the front as the captain's voice broke through the tension, shaky and uncertain. "We're experiencing technical difficulties." A murmur ran through the passengers. Was this just a random glitch, or was it something more? The hostess stood there, an unmovable statue, her gaze fixated ahead, as if awaiting a signal from the darkness itself. "Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect." But then, as if fate were teasing them, the engines roared back to life, sending a rush of relief through the cabin for just a moment. Yet the air hostess remained unfazed, her eyes still darting nervously. Out of nowhere, laughter erupted from the back, eerily mingling with the rattling of the plane. It wasn't the boy, it was that haunting sound again. Was she laughing? With hearts pounding and hands trembling, passengers shared furtive glances, sensing the weight of something truly bizarre pressing down upon them. The woman who had fallen fainted, now sat upright, her eyes clouded and distant, declaring she had seen shadows dancing in the aisles. Whispers of disbelief spread like wildfire, and the darkness that loomed outside seemed to creep ever closer, enveloping their reality. What secrets did the hostess hold? And was she truly one of them or something else entirely? The plane lurched again, the lights pulsing ominously. And as the terrified travelers gripped their armrests, racing thoughts filled the air. What awaited them in the shadows? A low rumble rolled underfoot as the plane banked sharply to the left. The cabin rattled violently, and a collective gasp erupted from the passengers. Anxiety twisted through them like tight knots. Glances flitted and fears amplified as the air hostess, undeterred by the chaos, drifted with unnatural grace to the front of the aircraft. Her expression remained eerily serene, as if she thrived amidst the turmoil. Shouts erupted from the rear. A man had bolted upright from his seat, panic etched across his face. "What's happening?" he cried, his voice slicing through the tension. His wide eyes glinted with raw terror, a mirror to the growing apprehension within the cabin. The lights flickered again, the darkness licking at their vulnerable moments of uncertainty. Then, a whisper cascaded through the air. "It's coming!" The woman who had previously fainted leaned close, her voice trembling, layering the chilling thought amongst the passengers. "I saw it behind her. The shadows are hungry." Fear surged through the rows, threading between the passengers, who seized one another's arms. The little boy in 23C began to whimper louder now, eyes wide, reflecting the terror swirling around him. The woman who had spoken trembled violently beside him, her eyes darting back as if something lurked just out of sight. Before anyone could respond, legroom became confining as the hostess reappeared. In her outstretched hand lay a silver tray, devoid of anything but a single glass of red liquid that glimmered ominously under the overhead lights. "Would anyone like a drink?" she asked, her voice soft and enticing, yet filled with an intense darkness. No one moved, every passenger paralyzed by anxiety. The hostess leaned closer, her breath cold, almost biting. "It's a special blend, to calm your nerves," she cooed, a wicked smile playing at the corners of her lips. For what should have felt safe and mundane was transformed into a nightmarish invitation. The lights dimmed again, and, buckling under the unsettling pressure, a woman shrieked, pointing towards the back of the plane. "There's something in the aisles." Her voice echoed, reverberating off the walls as passengers turned simultaneously, caught in a web of rising dread. In that fleeting moment, the shadows converged. Orbs of darkness seemed to swirl, casting elongated shapes against the cabin walls. Each pulse of light sharpened the silhouettes, twisting them into grotesque forms. Panic exploded, people scrambled for their seatbelts, digging nails into arms, adrenaline flooding through their veins. "Calm down." The captain's voice rang out again, though it felt feeble, fading against the wave of fear that rolled through the cramped space. "It's just turbulence, hang on." But it was wrong, it was everything but normal. The hostess stood perfectly still then, her icy eyes reflecting the fright enveloping everyone around her. She grinned wider, a predatory smile. Was she feeding off their fear? The laughter echoed again, this time louder, leading them further into chaos. The cabin lights dimmed again until the airplane was cloaked in a dreadful shadow, broken only by the flash of lightning that danced outside. What did they awaken when they took off? As the plane dove deeper into the storm, the horizon ahead morphed into a swirling abyss. The hostess opened her mouth, ready to reveal a sinister truth about their journey, but then another jolt sent them spiraling, lighter things falling, screams spurring. And just as suddenly as it all began, the plane began to plummet. All at once, the world outside faded into darkness, and passengers braced for the inevitable. Would their fear consume them? Or would they unearth the truth lurking among the shadows before it was too late? The shriek of terror erupted again, echoing through the cabin amidst the unsettling turbulence. A nearby passenger, caught in the throes of impending madness, yanked at his seatbelt with desperation. "We're going down. We're going to die," he screamed, his eyes wild and darting, a frantic deer in headlights as the shadows around him seemed to warp and twist. The hostess remained unfazed, her chilling smile a stark contrast to the fear-laden faces surrounding her. "Oh, dear," she said, her voice dripping with dark amusement. "You mustn't think like that. Fear is the gateway to understanding your true self." Her words hung in the air, heavy and suffocating, like smoke creeping into the lungs of terrified souls. Outside, the storm roared, rain clawing angrily at the fuselage. It felt like they were caught in some sort of dark maelstrom, each drop pounding to life the malevolent whispers that taunted their frayed nerves. Each flash of lightning illuminated grotesque silhouettes within the plane, flickering between terrified passengers, hungry shadows ready to ensnare them. From 23C, the little boy, still trembling, clutched his mother's arm. "Mommy, I want to go home," he cried, tears gleaming in his eyes as they reflected the frantic chaos surrounding them. His mother, equally terrified, barely managed to soothe him. "I know, sweetie, just hold on." Suddenly, without warning, the lights extinguished completely. A cold darkness enveloped them, pulling forth the magnitude of their fears. Dread clawed at every heart, and a chorus of anxious gasps filled the space. Then the shadows seemed to gather in the aisle, swirling like a cyclone, desperately feeding off the panic in the cabin, igniting each pulse of daring hope with horror. The captain's voice crackled over the intercom, breaking through the enveloping blackness. "Everyone, brace for impact. Keep your heads down and hold on." But his words seemed lost within the tumult of fear that gripped them all. "Calm," a woman shouted from the back, her voice strained with disbelief. "What does he think we're doing? Sitting down and sipping tea?" It was a small rebellion, but it resonated, igniting a flicker of unity amid the terror. The shadows pushed closer. The woman from earlier, the one who had whispered of the hungry darkness, was standing now, trembling yet resolute. "We can't let it take us," she cried, and surprisingly, many heads turned towards her, captivated in the haze of fear. "We must face it. Only then can we escape." But before reason could whip the flight back into sanity, the plane lurched violently. Screams filled the air again as the descent continued, fast and harrowing. In that moment of collective chaos, the glass of red liquid on the hostess's tray shattered, spraying droplets that sparkled like blood against the dimmed lights. She laughed, it sounded like shattering glass, echoing into the tight confines of their nightmare. "It's not just about fear," she said, leaning close to the trembling passengers. "It's about choice. What you drink transforms you." The little boy's mother hissed, "What do you mean?" But the hostess only leaned back, her smile widening, her eyes glimmering with an otherworldly allure. "Choose wisely." As the plane hurtled downwards, the voices of the frightened morphed into a cacophony of despair and uncertainty. A shrouded vision of darkness loomed both outside and within, as once more those glances turned inward. Fear gripped them like shackles, but then came the question, would they confront the beast or let it swallow them whole? With the storm raging outside and shadows swirling closer, which path would they choose? Would they succumb to the entity that sought to feed on them, or would they fight back and awaken something deeper inside them? In the heart of the chaos, a faint voice broke through the din, soft yet resolute, whispering something lost to the cries of panic. There's a way, and just as panic reached its peak, the floor quaked, shrieks mixed with bone-chilling laughter. The truth loomed just beyond their grasp, but was it a truth they dared to uncover? The plane lurched again, the shriek of metal and flesh merging into an unholy symphony. The turbulence intensified, as if the air itself was enraged, pushing against them, desperate to keep every frightened passenger confined within its haunted womb. Screams pierced the air again, but now they were mixed with sobs, and the boy's anguished cries seemed to cut deeper than mere terror. "Mommy!" he wailed, his small form trembling against the seat. The momentary glimpse of their reality plummeting through dark skies, cocooned in fear, was palpable in the cramped space. A few passengers gripped their armrests, knuckles whitening, while others huddled together, muttering frantic prayers into the storm's swirling chaos. "Divine intervention!" someone yelled, their voice cracking like thunder against the walls of the cabin. But as the chaos swirled, a calm shadow crept into the eyes of the woman who had stood up earlier. There was madness, yes, but also a glint of something darker, a realization perhaps. "It's true!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the fear. "The only way out is through." Her face seemed illuminated by flashes of lightning, shadows dancing across her features in a grotesque ballet. "Do you understand?" she persisted, steadying herself on the back of a seat. "We must face whatever this is. We must choose our paths." A chill wind seemed to blow through the cabin, almost an answer to her words. The hostess, still lurking amidst the horror, leaned in closer. In the dying light, her smile widened, unsettling as a predator poised to pounce. "Choice is indeed powerful," she murmured, her voice dripping with an echoed delight. "But the right choice may not be the kind you seek." Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life. Dim, flashing, revealing faces etched with fear, shimmering reflections of panic that glimmered in the haze. The hostess stood pristine, her figure a beacon of unnatural calm amidst the storm they were darting through both outside and within. "Drink up," she encouraged, holding the red liquid high, droplets glinting dangerously. The cabin fell silent, a temporary pause held in the balance of understanding as hesitant eyes turned towards the glimmering drink. "What if it gives you strength?" she suggested sweetly, "or clarity? It could reshape your very fate. Or could it doom us?" A voice croaked from the back, uncertainty pairing with desperation. It dawned upon them, were they merely puppets, or were they willing to cut their strings? As the turbulence raged, one brave soul, an older gentleman who had watched the chaos unfold, rose hesitantly, moving toward the hostess with a fire ignited within his chest. I choose to believe in something more than this fear. I choose to stand. The cabin exhaled as his voice cut through the dark energy suffocating them, but just as he reached for the forbidden drink, the plane dropped sharply, a nauseating plummet that sent fear spiraling into the depths of his heart. Chairs creaked and the world tilted. Fate has a way of revealing itself, the hostess whispered, tilting her head slightly. What will you do, brave soul? The tension coiled like a tightly wound spring, hammering hearts as they awaited his decision. In that instant, the boy's mother squeezed her son's hand, a flicker of hope in her eyes. Would they seize the opportunity for redemption and power, or would they succumb to the sinister depths of choice? The storm clamored outside, its fury unabated, while the shadows gathered thick and dark, ready to pull them into their embrace, and just then the lights flickered once more before plunging them back into an abyss of fear. But a voice in the darkness murmured, "Remember, who you really are." What truth would be revealed in this swirling vortex of terror? With each heartbeat, their time was running out. The plane twisted violently, and the man staggered back, his resolve fracturing as the ground seemed to disappear beneath them. The dim lights flickered ominously, casting the cabin in a strobing chaos of light and shadow. A collective gasp echoed as passengers braced for the inevitable crashing into the abyss, or worse, surrendering to the unknown forces at play. What is happening? A woman shrieked, clutching her baby tightly, eyes darting around as if searching for answers. Every face mirrored her terror. They were trapped in a dying vessel, each beat of their hearts thrumming in desperate synchronicity. The hostess's laughter rang, a strange, hollow sound amidst the unease. Don't worry, dear ones. The choices before you aren't the end, but new beginnings. Her eyes glinted with a chilling promise, a web of control woven behind her smooth exterior. New beginnings. A frantic voice bellowed from further back. You mean our deaths? What a sick joke. The anger swirled, fueling the fear, feeding off their confusion, igniting a primal fear they had thought long buried. Fear is but a moment, it will evolve. The hostess sang, effortlessly sailing through the chaos. Embrace it, and you'll see. She gestured broadly to the drink, still suspended in her elegant hand, a dark temptation that shimmered like a forbidden fruit. What's in that? A man shouted, his brow furrowed. You want us to drink something you're not willing to show us? Why should we trust you? Each syllable dripped with distrust, a spark igniting a firestorm of resentment among the passengers. The boy's mother moved to shield her son, her heart racing as the airflow rattled around them. We can't. She cried, tears brimming. We can't let fear take over. We can't lose ourselves to this madness. Her voice cracked, but it resonated, igniting a wave of agreement among those who felt similarly trapped. The tension buzzed, an electric charge, and suddenly the older gentleman found his footing again. You're right, Ma, he said, his voice steadier now. Fear will consume us if we let it. But before he could finish, there was a jolt, an inescapable, bone-chilling drop. Screams mingled with the low hum of dread, a chorus of vulnerability, and for a brief moment, time seemed to halt. The boy's sobs, once timid, transformed into piercing wails of panic. Hold on tight. A nearby woman shouted, gripping her seat as if refusing to be taken along with the descending chaos. We will make it. We can't let this be the end. Her defiance echoed, a ripple of strength that traveled through the cabin, forcing others to cling together in solidarity. The shadows seemed to falter, momentarily overshadowed by resolve. The hostess, her smile unwavering, stepped forward again as if drawn to this flicker of hope. Very brave, but hope alone cannot see you through this. Choose wisely. The lights burst once again, casting strange patterns across the faces of the passengers, illuminating horrified expressions as something shifted behind the hostess, an unseen force. Choose what? A terrified voice cried out. Then it happened, an explosion of sound and light, the plane shuddering as if responding to their collective will, and in that moment, everything turned to chaos. Drinks flew, belongings scattered, and the cabin erupted with a raw, visceral fear as reality warped around them. Who are we? The boy's mother whispered, breath hitching, as everything swirled. What do we truly want? In that final frantic gasp for clarity, the cabin momentarily froze. And then, darkness surged as the plane was enveloped in shadow. Your true essence awaits you, echoed the hostess's voice, intertwining with the shadows the promise of revelations yet to come, the promise of their darkest fears unveiled. Would the truth they found lead them to freedom, or deeper into the trap laid before them? The question hung there, tantalizing, as the storm roared outside, underscoring their unresolved fate. The darkness pressed in on them like a living thing, wrapping around each passenger and squeezing the air from their lungs. The last flickers of light flickered out, leaving them in an abyss where only shadows danced. Heartbeats thundered, punctuating the silence, each pulse an affirmation of their shared fear. Someone turn on your phone. A voice cried, trembling and desperate. But as the passengers fumbled for any source of light, the darkness seemed to swallow their efforts, extinguishing the signals one by one. The cabin felt smaller, the enclosed space amplifying every rustle and whisper, every gasp that echoed with dread as the reality settled and there was no escape from this void. What do we do? The woman with the baby whimpered, her breath hitching in her throat. The hostess's voice, eerily calm, broke through the haze. Recognize your fear, and confront it. Only then can you choose your path. Embrace or deny, the decision rests with you. What do you mean, confront it? The older gentleman shouted, his voice strained. We're not even sure what that means. Is this some twisted game of yours? Not a game. She declared, her words humming with a strange energy. Your perceptions shape this moment. Let the fear wash over you. Let it guide you. Suddenly, the lights flickered back to life, illuminating the cabin with a harsh, fluorescent glow that did nothing to chase away the dread crowding in their minds. But rather than relief, the lighting revealed something sinister. Passengers stared wide-eyed at one another, a wave of horror washing over them. Shadows whispered secrets, and the truth felt like a blade hanging over their heads. I can't breathe. A man gasped, clutching his open shirt, eyes darting around, frantically seeking answers among the chaos. Focus on what terrifies you, the hostess instructed, an unsettling smile plastered on her face. Let it sink in. Share it. Allow the truth in. Why would I share anything with you? Another voice shot back. We want to survive, not succumb to whatever game you're playing. But the urge to share grew contagious, like a fever running through the cabin. One by one, they shared their deepest fears. I'm terrified I'll never see my family again. A woman cried, choking on her tears. My father, he died and I never got to say goodbye, the boy's mother murmured, pain etched deeply in her eyes. I fear being powerless, the older gentleman confessed, vulnerability cracking through his bravado. That's why I took control of my life. I thought I could shield myself from everything. Each confession became a weapon, piercing deeper into their collective soul. The air thrummed with tension as confessions mixed with laughter. It was a painful, raw catharsis that made the darkness pulse more violently around them. As each secret unfurled, the hostess's smile deepened, her presence becomes denser. That's right, embrace them. They are your anchors and your chains. Understand them, and you will know what lies ahead. And just then, a low hum resonated through the plane, the sound of metal creaking against unimaginable forces. The passengers instinctively braced themselves, nerves fraying under the weight of the unknown. Suddenly, everything jerked violently again, as though the plane were on the brink of catastrophe once more. Screams erupted, punctuating the air as darkness swelled, caressing their hearts with icy fingers. What if we don't want to choose? A voice cried, fervent and frantic. Then the choice becomes clearer, the hostess replied, her voice curiously alluring. You'll drift in this shadow, adrift without the power of your fears. A single tear slid down the boy's mother's cheek as she looked at her son, small and terrified. We need to make it out of this. We can't be foolish. We can't let fear control our fate. But before she could rally her words into strength, the lights flickered again, revealing the faces around her twisted in fear that was rapidly changing into something else, something darker, and then, as if responding to their despair, something vicious and unidentifiable slithered through the aisles. Face it. The hostess demanded. The cabin fell silent, time stretching into eternity as they confronted the shadows of their own making. What lurked in those shadows? What waited at the precipice of truth? The air thickened, and consciousness itself shook from the impending revelation, and then, an unearthly scream pierced the tension, as the last thread of sanity wavered. What was about to be unleashed? Panic whipped through the cabin like a storm, each passenger caught in its relentless gale. Breaths came out in ragged gasps, and the sudden silence after the scream felt like a weight pressing down on them all. The shadows writhed, coiling around limbs and hearts alike. And in that suffocating darkness, fear morphed into something primal, something beastly. Is it getting colder? A voice croaked, trembling as chills prickled at their skin. This wasn't just a fear of the unknown anymore, it was fear turned to terror, its icy fingers clawing at sanity. Look! Someone shouted, pointing frantically toward the front of the aisle, where the hostess stood. Her smile, gleaming in the harsh light, now looked less like comfort and more like a predator-esque grin. You see it, don't you? She said, her voice syrupy sweet, dripping with sadistic amusement. That isn't just darkness, it's the essence of your own despair. You've awoken it. What do you mean? The woman with the baby whispered, trembling more from fear than from the chill. Every fear you've let out, every confession their truths have summoned these shadows. They're hungry for your anguish. Give in, and they'll devour you whole, she continued, her gaze roaming hungrily over the crowd. Each frightened face seemed like a feast she'd dreamed of. The shadows thickened around the trembling passengers, whispering in tones as ancient as despair itself. What do you fear most? They seemed to chant, echoing the cries of candor they had just unleashed. The young man who had shared his fear of never seeing his family leaned back in his seat, eyes wide with the realization that nothing could protect him from this horror. The shadows were not just reflections, they were reality. Shut up. You're lying. The older gentleman shouted, yet his voice shook. He remembered all too clearly the powerlessness he had felt when he lost his family in a car accident years ago. The shadows were sharp claws digging into his memories. Do you want to survive? The hostess asked, her voice now smooth as silk and laced with venom. Or do you want to give in to despair and join the shadows? Your choice, my dear passengers. With every confession, the atmosphere thickened, pulsating with the passengers' terror, feeding the shadows until they loomed larger, darker, transforming into grotesque forms reminiscent of failed aspirations and crushed hopes. I can't take it, the boy's mother murmured, battling her own anguish over her son's fear. She was now trapped, tugged between the desire to protect and the suffocating grip of hopelessness. Suddenly, the lights flickered again, casting wild shadows that danced across the passengers' faces. A guttural snarl echoed through the cabin like a twisted laugh from the underworld. Face your truth. The hostess commanded, her eyes lighting up with madness. Show your fear, or be consumed by it. Panic surged anew. Some passengers, too close to the brink, screamed while others fell silent, tears glistening on their cheeks. In the midst of it all, the young boy clutched his mother's hand tightly, fear slipping through his small fingers, a fear wrestled from the depths of unspoken thoughts. Mom, I'm scared, he whispered, as the shadows began to take form at the edges of his vision, figures that felt both familiar and wrong. Together, we can face it. She encouraged, her voice a fragile beacon. Yet, as the shadows gathered, she felt their pull, a seductive lure promising sweet release from pain. Could she truly confront it? Just then, the cabin jolted violently, the plane shuddering as if shaken by some unseen force. The lights flickered one last time, casting one final tableau of fear that would be etched into their minds forever. And then silence fell, suffocating and heavy. It was an awful, expectant silence, waiting for the next move, the next confession, the next choice. What would they unleash in this chilling moment? What terrors would they have to bear? The silence was deafening, swathing the cabin in a cold, oppressive stillness. Each passenger, paralyzed by their own fears, seemed caught between the remnants of hope and impending doom. Then, it happened. The lights flickered out completely, plunging them into a Stygian blackness. Panic exploded like a sudden, ignited fuse. The hostess's voice was now a ghostly whisper, weaving through the shadows, "Face your darkness or drown in it." The words slithered into their minds, igniting unspeakable fears. "Mom." The boy's voice quivered, tight with confusion. She felt the warmth of his small hand clutching her fiercely, a lifeline in that overwhelming darkness. "I'm here, sweetheart," she reassured, but even to herself, her voice trembled with uncertainty. She remembered a childhood tale her mother had told, a story of children who ventured too deep into the darkness, never to return. Was this place weaving its own tale now? Suddenly, a shriek pierced the air, a woman's voice, shattering the silence like glass. It was as if the shadows exhaled a deep breath, feeding off that fear, growing fatter, more vivid. It took form, lank and twisting, a dark mass that echoed the contours of despair. "Don't look. Don't let it in." The older gentleman shouted, his voice cracking, drowning in the swell of collective dread. Yet the more they fought it, the stronger it grew, picking up on their collective agony. "Show us your fears." The hostess commanded again, her tone now lacking sweetness, filled with malice. "Because those shadows, they are waiting for a taste. And you're all on the menu." The boy's mother felt her heart race. "The truth can hurt, but hiding in fear will do worse." "Mom!" he screamed, a wild shriek that spiraled into panic as colors danced in front of her eyes, flashes of moments lost, the day they almost drowned in the ocean, the time he fell from his bike and cried. "No!" she gasped. It was too real. The shadows pulsed as if breathing, each shudder exposing glimpses of her innermost terror, her deep-rooted guilt and despair buried far beneath the surface. As more of those bottled confessions swirled in the air, the darkness began to coil around her, sneaking into her thoughts and twisting them like a knife. A man in the back of the cabin stood up, trembling, his voice came like a whisper of frost. I can't do this." He took a step toward the aisle, and the shadows surged forward, ravenous. They licked at his heels, eager to taste his self-doubt. "Don't!" shouted a passenger, leaning forward in desperation. But it was too late. The shadows lunged, swallowing him whole with an insatiable, gurgling roar. Screams erupted, a cacophony of fear, a desperate plea for survival radiating through the smothering chaos. The passengers moved instinctively, thrashing against their seats, trying to escape the clawing darkness. "Look inside yourselves." The hostess boomed, her smile now a cracked mask of madness. "That's where your shadows dwell." The cabin trembled again. This time, it felt as if the plane itself was quaking under the weight of their fears. Lights flared back to life for just a fleeting instant. In that brief moment, the passengers glimpsed the edges of what loomed beyond the darkness, horrific silhouettes formed of their greatest regrets. The boy latched onto his mother tighter. The shadows writhed hungrily around him, trying to pull him into their depths. "Mom, please. Don't leave me. I want. I promise." She screamed, her voice cracking under the weight of their fear, but as her defiance rose like a wall, the hostess now chanted, "A choice is coming, are you ready?" All at once, every eye turned toward her, the truth dawning painfully. They each had to face their judgment. They had to unveil their hidden fears. What truths would emerge from the depths? What choices could they make to fight against the shadows before them? Would their confessions bring salvation or ruin? The collective breath held tightly as recognition swept through the cabin. Time was running out, and the darkness had their number. It was coming for them all. The boy's mother could feel the weight of dread pressing down on her chest. Time was slipping away, and each heartbeat felt like a countdown. The shadows were shifting closer, their dark tendrils grasping at her, tugging at her very essence. "Mom! I can't breathe." The boy's voice was strained, thick with fear. She wanted to pull him close, protect him from everything, all of it. She locked her eyes onto the hostess, seeking answers in that twisted grin. What do we do? Face your fears, sweetie, the hostess crooned, her tone dripping with sickly sweet malice. They crave recognition, your shadows do. Only then can you hope to escape. From the back, another passenger let out a shriek that cut through the air like a blade. No, no. I won tea. I won tea. The darkness seemed to ripple in response to her panic, a surging wave yearning to consume. The shadows engulfed her, a chilling silence following as they absorbed her cries. The cabin was a tempest of screams and raw terror, each screech feeding the overpowering shadows. A cacophony of regrets floated through the air, mingling with the faint hum of the engines, forming an eerie symphony. The boy clutched his mother tighter, the warmth of his hand now icy. Mom, please, he whimpered, tears spilling onto his cheeks. What if we don't know what we're afraid of? A thought slashed through her mind, everything they ran from, everything she had buried. We have to try, sweetheart. We can't let them win. Her voice stirred something within her, a spark of courage igniting amidst the ashes of despair. The hostess stepped closer, her eyes glinting like obsidian. Indeed, child. Embrace the glass. Share your truth. It's the only way. Shivers cascaded down the mother's spine as she glanced around the cabin. Eyes darted between her and the shadows, frantic whispers floating like leaves in a storm. Each passenger wrestled with their fears, circling closer toward the edge, every man and woman enslaved in their own haunting memories. Then, it struck her a horrifying realization. The truth had its own taste, didn't it? Bitter, sharp, and dark. What if their fears weren't merely reflections, but monsters of their own design, waiting hungrily? Tell us, then. She yelled into the darkness, lifting her chin defiantly. What do you want from us? Show us. I'll face whatever it is. The shadows recoiled for a moment, then surged, ravenous and pungent. Laughter echoed, a high, discordant sound that made the air quiver. You're feeling brave, the hostess sneered, her voice twisted with joy. Then let us begin. A flickering of lights above revealed the faces of other passengers, muddled with terror, confusion, and a flicker of hope. I regret not trying harder, shouted a young woman, her words erupting like a firecracker. She became a willing participant, carrying her weight of guilt towards the shadows. This is insane. A distraught man cried out, shaking his head. How do we get out? We can't just say our fears. No. Yelled an older lady, clutching her chest. You must hold on to them. Speak only of the burdens you've carried. They will twist and spread, but in understanding and exposure some may still survive. The room seemed to inhale, each life hanging precariously in the balance, shadows swirling like maelstrom ready to explode. Mom. The boy's voice shot through her like an arrow. What scared you the most when I was born? The question was a knife, slicing through their collective panic. She froze, memories flashing before her eyes the moment she cradled him, how fragile he seemed. Losing you, she breathed, the weight of her truth settling on her shoulders. I feared I would never be enough. The shadows hissed and twisted, as if tasting that confession, savoring it. They lunged, beckoning the others closer. Did they sense her strength? Or was it merely her despair that scented the air? Now. She shouted. It's your turn. Face what haunts you or let it consume you. Suddenly, the air crackled with potential, a moment suspended in fear. Shadows flickered, a dance of shapes, enticing and terrifying. Who would step forward? Next. Who would unveil their darkest truths before it was too late? The clock was ticking, and the darkness was hungry for more. An eerie silence fell over the cabin, heavy with the weight of their confessions. Hearts pounded, each thud echoing like a war drum. The shadows seemed to writhe with anticipation, feeding on their fear, desperate for a taste of doubt and despair. The hostess stood there, a dark spectre delighting in their turmoil, her smile slicing through the tension like a razor's edge. Then, as if sparked from the depth of their torment, the older gentleman stepped forward. He hesitated, words clawing at his throat. "I feared losing control of my life, my family." The shadows twisted and twirled, swirling around him, hungry to devour his admission. "Yes." The hostess cheered, her voice thick with malice. "Feel the truth wash over you. It electrifies the air, doesn't it?" A young woman, emboldened by his courage, shouted, "I regret leaving my dreams behind. I let fear dictate my choices." The shadows recoiled but reverberated with a vibrating hunger, thrumming to life. "Great!" the hostess responded, her eyes glistening darkly. "Feed them. Feed the shadows. They live for your anguish." The plane jolted violently again, a bone-rattling reminder of their precarious position. With every confession, the shadows shrieked and morphed, reflecting regrets back at the passengers like cracked mirrors. The little boy's innocent voice broke through, a stark contrast to the chaos. "I'm scared of the dark," he confessed, tears trickling down his cheeks, pure vulnerability shining through. The shadows paused, seemingly wrestled by the innocence of truth. "Yes. Hold that fear," the hostess urged, "live in it, taste it. Show me more." The boy's mother clutched him tight, her heart swelling with both love and dread. "I fear for his safety, I'm terrified I'll fail him," she cried, raw emotion pouring out of her. Suddenly, laughter erupted, but this time, it wasn't from the hostess. It was a shared laughter, aching and loud, reverberating through the cabin. It echoed the truth they bore, of connection forged through pain. One by one, others stepped forward, compelled by an unrelenting push to confront their darkness. A man shouted, "I regret not loving enough. Not taking the chances when I had them." With each verbal stone thrown into the darkness, the shadows writhed yet again, beginning to dissolve. "Now it's breaking," a passenger exclaimed, hope threading through her words. The hostess's delight twisted into a snarl, anger washing over her normally calm exterior. "No. You mustn't." Yet, the passengers pressed on, feeling empowered by their shared revelations. A united front against the shadows began to take shape. Each confession chipped away at their collective anxieties, unveiling a strength they never anticipated. "Keep going," the older gentleman said, enthusiasm rekindled in his eyes. "Together, we can break these bonds." Then, with a final flicker of dim lights, someone shouted, "We can't be consumed. We won't let fear win." The shadows surged, howling against their defiance, but the will of the passengers ignited a flame of rebellion. Hands clenched, eyes fierce and wide, they chanted their truths. "I will face every fear. I refuse to hide. I am more than my regrets." The plane bucked and shuddered toward some unseen fate, but the journey transformed into a collective awakening. Each voice layered upon the next lit a fire in the cabin, and the darkness quivered, losing its grip. With one last scream, echoing through the plains of fear and despair, the shadows began to shatter, bursting like glass against the overwhelming power of unity and confession. "Release them!" the hostess shrieked, now caught in the storm of their resurgence, and just like that, silence fell. The plane steadied, and the lights glowed unyieldingly bright. The passengers drew in breaths, their chests rising and falling like waves, the grip of fear that once held them in thrall fading into whispers. One final resolution hovered in the air. "We faced it together," someone murmured, a smile breaking through the residual tension. In that moment, they all found their strength in the aftermath of fear, serving a beautiful reminder that it was their connections that illuminated the darkest paths. The plane stabilized, resounding with the hum of lives intertwined and fears transformed. As they descended, a flicker of hope lit the horizon ahead, a new dawn to greet them, free from the shadows that had once threatened to engulf them. And so, their terrifying journey came to a close, a story of courage, unity, and resilience woven through the fabric of shared fears and the light they dared to reveal. Don't miss out on amazing stories like this one. You need to subscribe now to the channel so you don't miss any upcoming episodes that will keep you on the edge. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. We want your reactions and theories about this chilling finale. Flood the comments section below. And remember, you must instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this powerful conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for the stories that haunt, enlighten, and inspire. Don't wait even one more second.